Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Jen Sugarmeyer, your host of Mindset in the Morning, brought to you by Higher in Heels. And I would love if you would like, subscribe, and share this with your friends because we are here live 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Central Standard Time. But because it's YouTube, you can join whenever you would like. And this week we are talking about pivoting, which it seems like we're talking about it a lot, but this is such an important topic. A lot of times, pivoting is associated with entrepreneurs and an entrepreneurial business when you're getting started and things of that nature. But actually, pivoting is synonymous for change, making a change. And we do it every day in our lives. So, whether that be in our relationships or anything that we're doing, really, we may make a shift, a change. We move to a new city, we take a new job. Maybe it is our business and we change our business model. But whatever that may be, pivots are bound to happen. So I'm feeling very bright, by the way. I don't know if this comes across the same color, but it's actually like neon green. So I'm really feeling this color here. This is my $14 Amazon purchase. So when we are pivoting, today we're talking about how do we pivot effectively? And yesterday we talked about how failure doesn't exist. There is no such thing as failure unless you want to subscribe to the fact that you failed. But failure is a choice that we make because everything is a mindset. And so we can tell ourselves that, sure, yeah, this was a failure, or we can learn from it. We can grow from it. We can accept that, hey, maybe this wasn't the path I was supposed to be on. And we talked about all these incredible companies like Twitter that didn't start out as Twitter. It started out as they wanted to be a podcasting platform. And Nintendo was like out there selling vacuum cleaners and all the things. I mean, yeah, there were a lot of pivots that these companies took. And I wouldn't call any of those companies failures. Like Avon. Avon started out as book sales. And the guy was like, with your book, you get free perfume. And then he realized that the women buying the books were actually more into the perfume. So, yeah, so that's what they did. They started to buy perfume instead. And so he pivoted his business model. And so I don't think we would say that Twitter or Avon or Nintendo or any of the companies we talked about yesterday were failures. So it's all in the mind and all how we look at these things. So once we've made up our mind that, hey, it's time to pivot, and we talked about early in the week, some reasons why we might want to pivot. And if you are putting more time and more effort into what you're getting back, then yeah, it might be time. And again, I can't tell you when and when not to pivot. I can't do that for you. Only you can decide. And if you've been doing something for like a week, if you just moved to a new apartment and you're like, man, I've been here for like 3 days, I don't like it. I mean, should you give it a little more time? Or if you get into a new relationship with someone and it's only been 2 weeks, should you give it more time? If it's a business model and you're pivoting away from it, should you give it more time? So you need to assess what that's going to look like in your life. I can't tell you, and I, certainly could offer an opinion, but I can't tell you what to do. And I don't know that there's any right or any wrong, but we do want to give things enough time to see, hey, because there's a lot of work that goes into something. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. If we get into a new relationship, or if we move, or if we start a business, all of these things take time. So you got to think about, is it the right time, and go through some of the things. And if you do decide that you're going to pivot, first and foremost, just remember everything's going to be okay. It is going to be a test maybe of your ego, because you're wondering, hey, what are people thinking about me? All this. Just stay in your lane. Remember that this is you and you. Don't worry about what anybody else is thinking. Don't worry about what they're saying, because there's 8 billion people in this world and we can't satisfy everybody. Everybody's going to have an opinion. I remember my mom told me one time, she said, Jen, it doesn't matter if you're the president or a preacher. They're not going to make everybody happy. So I get it. You are going to make a shift. And when we shift, That's change. There's a change that's happening within the world. And so some people around you may be observing or they may be impacted, and we can't worry about what everybody's doing. So just stay in your lane and remember that everything is going to be okay. And now imagine the pivot. Imagine what this is going to look like. I mean, because we do need to be methodical about this. I mean, if we are going to make that move, if we're making that shift, that change, then let's start to envision okay, so maybe this didn't work. Maybe going around doing book sales door to door, like we talked about yesterday with Avon, giving, samples of perfume. Maybe that's not the model, but what would the model look like if you started selling perfume door to door? And so, what did this man do? He already had an alliance of women that were sold on his product because they wanted to buy his books just so they could get the perfume. So he thought, wow, what if I employed some of these women to go out there and help me sell this perfume? So he imagined this, he envisioned what this plan was going to look like. And what does it look like long term for you? Let's just sit with that for a minute. If you make this change, like where are you going in your life? Maybe you say, I want to make a career change. I did it. I made a massive career change. And that's because where I was, I didn't want to be 60, 70 and retiring from corporate. That wasn't where I saw myself. I saw myself working for myself because I wanted the flexibility, which, by the way, that doesn't mean that being an entrepreneur is easy by any stroke of the imagination. Becoming an entrepreneur is like, and you just find yourself working quite a bit. I think, things will level out. But so I'm not here to say that it's easy, but I wanted the flexibility that if in the middle of the day I need to go to a doctor's appointment or to the dentist or to the grocery store or throw in a load of laundry, that I could actually do that. Whereas in corporate, I didn't have as much flexibility. So what does your life look like? What does whatever you're changing and shifting and pivoting, how does that look like for you in your short term game, in your long term game, in the overall picture? If you're going to roll out a new product, what does that product look like in the world? How is the world a better place because of what you're doing? It's got to be there's some reason you saw a gap. Maybe if you're an entrepreneur and you're rolling out a new product, you saw a gap. You said, well, the world's going to be a better place with this app because of XYZ, and this is how it's going to impact our lives. So just really sit with that and think about the long term, think about the short term, and does this world look because of this pivot, this change, this shift that you are about to make. Do your research. Research before you start jumping into something. I know when I made a move, I moved from East Coast to West Coast and I moved to California. And I moved to this little tiny town called Fairfield. And um I thought I had done my research, meaning I went through and I drove through the town like one time and I was like, okay, I know where I want to live. And I got a job. And so I moved. So I got the job. So I went back to the East Coast and they were like, you got the job. So I was like, okay. So I signed up for this apartment complex and I get out there and I'm like, oh my gosh, this was probably a mistake. It was like in the middle of the ghetto, y'all. Like, I'm not even kidding. I was like, are you serious here? Oh, so I thought I had done my research, but I really jumped into this pivot without asking people, without reading reviews, I think I was just so excited to get out of Virginia, which was my goal, that I didn't do ample research. And I remember when the company started talking about they ended up moving to Texas, which is how I ended up down here 8 years ago. And they were like, Jen, would you be interested? I was like, yes. Like, you don't even have to tell me where we're going. I'm just done because I hadn't done my research. So make sure that as you are pivoting, shifting, whatever you're doing within your life, ask people, do some customer research, especially if you are an entrepreneur and you're putting like equity, maybe it's financial equity, it's sweat equity into these things. I mean, we all have sweat equity that we're putting into, maybe it's time that we put into a relationship, or the time it takes to move, or the time it takes to change jobs. But if you're rolling out a product and you've put in a financial investment in addition to your sweat equity and the time that you've invested in it, I mean, none of us really want to lose money. We all want to make sure that at least we're getting our money back, or that our money's going towards something that's a benefit or whatever. I mean, we want to be a little more careful around money. So don't be afraid to do some customer research and ask people. Like if I had asked people, hey, what do you think of this apartment complex in the middle of the ghetto? They may have said, I don't know, probably no, probably not there. Maybe try this other area out. And again, I thought I had done my research, but I really didn't. I didn't. Was the internet? Yeah, the internet was around then. I'm trying to think, because the internet just kind of came out of nowhere. So yeah, the internet was around. So I should have been able to go online, read reviews, ask somebody, ask the company, hey, what do you think of this place? So anyway, do your research, envision what it's going to look like, do all those things up front, and then start to make strategic alignments and relationships. Who are you going to partner with? And again, this could be case by case. You're like, there is no use case for me having a partnership or an alliance with this pivot that I'm about to make. Okay, all right. I don't know what it is for you, what you're trying to pivot to or pivot away from. I don't know. But if there is a relationship that you can align with, do it. I remember when I went to India. This was, gosh, back in 2011, and I went with the goal, with the objective of learning how to cook. And I went and spent a couple of months there. And before I went, I found this group called the Food Enthusiasts of Delhi, and I aligned with them. And I said, "Hey, look, I'm here just to learn how to cook. I'd love to get together with you guys. You are enthusiastic about food. I'm enthusiastic about food. So I would love to just come and do one of your meetups with you." So I went to the meetup and I met the guy that founded. There were like 10,000 members at the time or something, which was really impressive because the internet was still, I mean, we're just like getting going here with the internet. And and I went to him and I said, "Look, here's my objective. I came to India to learn how to cook." And he said, "Okay, Jen, well, here's what I can do for you. I'm going to put something out online that says, hey, this foodie from America is here to learn how to cook. And if you're interested in having her come to your home, let us know." And he goes, because he goes, "Let me go through and weed out the people you should or shouldn't go to their homes, because this is on social media and anybody could be like, come to my home." And it could be, so he goes, "Let me go through and make some suggestions of the people that you should align with." And so that's what he did. So I made that partnership with him before I got there. And then when I was face to face, I said, "These are my intentions. These are my goals, my objectives. Here's my mission. Here's my vision." And I laid it all out to him and he was able to help me. You don't have to do it all. You don't. And a lot of times, those partnerships, those alliances, they're going to help you in the big term. So, whatever that means for you, whether it's in your business, whether it's in, whatever your pivot is, think about who can you contact to, align with to help you get to your goal. Maybe you're building something and there's synergy between you and another corporation or an entity. And so if you two align together, then you'll be really powerful. Or maybe they have you come in as a guest and you can talk about what you're doing. And so you get in front of more people. But having those partnerships is really going to help you. Okay. Let's come up with a plan, like an actual plan of action, not just theories, ideas. We don't need to be like Wild West in this thing, like, and now I'm going to do this. Nope, wait, hold on. Over here, I'm going to do this. No, no, we do not need to Wild West our lives. This is why we get up every single day. This is why I am here every single day, because I want to be intentional about my life. I want to be intentional about how I set my mind every morning. I want to be intentional about the 80, 90, 100 years that I have on this planet. I don't want to just guess. I don't want to just Wild West this thing. And if you're building a business, think about what are those steps. So come up with a plan. If you ask me, Jen, what are your career goals? What are you doing now? I would say, here's phase one of my business. Here's phase two of my business. Here's phase three. Now, I do have like a lot of different, I mean, my plan's like a little all over the map, but I can tell you what the big vision looks like. What does this phase three look like in my life? So think about these things, come up with an action plan, come up with a game plan. And remember, you can ask people for help. This isn't something that you yourself have to come up with. And even if it's, okay, well, my long term goal is I want to get into a relationship. Okay, come up with a game plan. There's probably a reason that I'm single because I hate dating websites. I don't go in public like a whole lot. I mean, I do sometimes, but I find myself so often, working on my business and doing the things and networking and I'm just really focused on this that if I'm like, yeah, I want to be in a relationship, what kind of game plan do I have? I'm kind of just leaving that one to chance. But I had a roommate one time and she said, I'm going to get married. And this girl was like on 2 dates like a day. Like it was crazy. She was on dates all the time, but she was like, nope, this is it. I'm going to make this happen. And guess what? She found herself a great guy. They've been married for 10 plus years. They have 2 kids together. I mean, she went out and she did. She wanted 2 kids. She wanted to be married. She wanted financial stability. She wanted her master's. And so she came up with a game plan. So don't think that a game plan is just for business or whatnot. I'm talking about being intentional. We talked about intentionality last week. That be intentional. Come up with a game plan for your life. How do you want to get to that end state goal? But first, you have to know, what is that end state goal? What does it look like to you? So, which is why we started out with that. Okay, reuse what you can. All right. Like whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish, you have already probably done something in your life. If you are pivoting away from a business idea, there are already things that you have used. It's like reusing content when you're a coach, for example. So I could take these videos and make them into small little clips and then put them out on social media. Like I don't need to come up with more content. I can literally give these to someone to go and take clips and do social media marketing and things like that. So reuse what you have. You've already built a foundation either of knowledge or you know things that content, whatever that may be. So look and say, hey, are there things that I can reuse? It's like, you know, when your mom used to or your dad used to get really creative with your dinners and they took like the leftovers from like the entire week and then threw them into to a dish, and you're like, that's an interesting dish, but it tasted good because it was all good food and they just kind of made a smorgasbord out of it. Yeah, reuse what you have. We don't need anything to go to waste. So think about, as you're coming up with your game plan, what can I already reuse? Because some of those you may have made a financial investment. So let's make sure that you get what you invested into it. Let's repurpose that. So again, we could be talking about content. We could be talking about lessons learned. We could be talking about a knowledge base that you had for some product that you're trying to develop. Whatever it is, reuse what you can. And lastly, take action. So we want to start with what is the vision, and we want to work through, we're doing our customer research and we're asking people and we're forming relationships and we're coming up with a game plan. And lastly, you got to go into action. And I will say, and again, I can't tell you how quickly or not quickly to pivot and make these changes, but when you know, you know. So noodle on that and move. It's not good to just keep these things belaboring on. Just make the move, make that shift, and get into to action. Let the people around you know what you're doing so that they can help, they can support, whatever it is, and say like, hey, I'm moving. Hey, relationship. Hey, business, whatever it is. Let people know, but get into action. Nothing is going to happen if you don't get into action. So those are the steps on how to pivot. If you have additional, I would love to see in the content or in the comments, drop below. What are some other things that you do when you are pivoting? What are some things that maybe we didn't talk about here that can benefit others? So with that, I would love to see you here tomorrow. Today, I want you to think about how you want to show up today and how it is that you want to feel, how you want to be portrayed. How is it that you are going to show up? Because I know you are a powerful human being. So let's be intentional about this as you walk out that door today. How is that going to be for you? So I will see you here tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. If you are watching us live, same time, same place. Love you. See you tomorrow. Cheers.